Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting Great British Road Journey. This week I'm still in West Yorkshire, a county famous for its industrial heritage, having contributed heavily to the Industrial Revolution, which ended a long time ago, and we've now got Bradford. Great, another one to avoid as we take a journey from Huddersfield, or Huddersfield when you speak properly, to Keighley. As always, to help navigate our way around, we'll be using my 1923 Michelin guidebook, period correct maps, and we're starting just outside of Huddersfield at a place called Castle Hill, which is just up there. And it is indeed a hill, which I'm thrilled to discover has road access and a car park at the top, so you don't need to walk up it. It's not massive at 900 feet or so, but you do get a lovely view of the surrounding area. Ew, Huddersfield. There's also the Victoria Tower, built in 1899 and now a prominent landmark for Huddersfield. It's little over 100 feet in height, meaning Castle Hill and the tower adds up to a total of over 1,000 feet, and this is most likely an intentional design feature. It's called the Victoria Tower because it was built to commemorate 60 years of Queen Victoria's reign, the longest of any monarch, but this was all undermined somewhat a year after opening when somebody fell to their death from the top owing to there being no safety barriers or guardrails to prevent it. There was that, but he was also very, very drunk. Either way, safety rails were installed immediately afterwards. Bloody health and safety, it ruins everything. In later years, the tower was nearly demolished, the reason being that between the years of 1939 and 1945, it was thought that it would make an excellent navigational aid or bombing target for certain overseas visitors. Fortunately, they didn't demolish it, and that's very likely because of this anti-aircraft site installed but a short distance away. There were two heavy anti-aircraft gun placements here, tasked with bringing down any enemy forces before they could reach their target, in this case, most likely Huddersfield. I doubt they were interested in the tower. It's one of the better preserved examples of such a site, with many of the buildings still in situ, one of which would have been the main control building, with many of the others used for ammunition storage. However, for a short while, there was also a prisoner of war camp or area situated here alongside the gun placement. In 1942, the anti-aircraft part of the site was moved elsewhere, following the realisation that no one was interested in destroying this area, such was its insignificance, but the guns, personnel and equipment could certainly be put to better use elsewhere, and the site was left abandoned. But what do you say we head over to Huddersfield? In the days of my guidebook, Huddersfield was a busy and industrial place with over 110,000 residents. The Industrial Revolution kicked off in Huddersfield in 1750, with several mills opening to cater for the wool and textile industries. And when the Victorians came along, things got much bigger and better. The Victorian era would see many amazing structures going up in Huddersfield, and a good example of this is the now Grade 1 listed Huddersfield Railway Station, which from the outside looks like a huge mansion or manor house with a train set in the garden. Today it's managed poorly by Trans-Pennine Express rail services, and it's soon to close so they can extend the platforms, allowing them to run longer trains and then cancel them. No bus replacement service for us as we make our way to our next destination. To get there we need the A629, which when passing Elland has completely changed since the old days. The road used to follow this route into Elland, but we can't do that and have to use the more recently constructed bypass. I guess we'll be bypassing Elland then. No bother though, because just up the road is the beautiful town of Halifax that in the days of my guidebook had 100,000 residents. Today it's around 88,000. Oh dear. My guidebook says that the town is noted for cloth, worsted and carpets, but I'm guessing not anymore. And whilst we're there, it makes no mention of interesting things to see or do, so I assume back then it was an industrial area. But hang on, what the f*** is worsted? It's a high-end wool yarn that takes its name from Worsted, a village in Norfolk. It differs from normal wool due to the way it's manufactured. Worsted is spun with long parallel fibres, and the end result is a much smoother finish, whereas normal wool tends to be a bit woolly, and to make it you need a mill. Here is one, or was, known as Old Lane Mill. It was built in 1825 and it was one of the first steam-powered mills in the area, giving it an advantage, allowing the business to grow quickly. At its peak there would have been 1,000 people operating the various mill components, and it survived right up until the 1970s when it was decided to close down the north of England. Since then the site has sat abandoned, but is currently being turned into housing or flats which no one can afford. We're moving on, and like before we'll be using the A629, and I think we're entering an area of West Yorkshire that didn't get the recent software update because the road remains completely unchanged, as do most of the villages you'll pass by, such as Denholm and Cullingworth, where we'll be taking a quick detour. Because between those two villages is the Hewenden Viaduct that was built by the Great Northern Railway in 1883 as part of a branch line that ran from Halifax to Keighley, and it was known as the Alpine Railway due to its tendency to weave and turn through the terrain using several tunnels and bridges. The Hewenden Viaduct is the largest structure on the branch line at 37 metres high with 17 arches totalling 527 metres in length, and it sits on foundations that go 60 metres down into the ground. Usually you might not need to go that far, but the ground was found to be quite unstable, so it was put on extra large foundations to ensure that the structure lasted, and evidently it has. Whilst the tracks were lifted in the 1960s, today it remains open to cyclists and walkers as part of the Great Northern Railway Trail. As we make our way towards Keighley, we have to pass through the village of Crossroads, which is built around a three-way roundabout. False advertising, but sticking with the railway theme, to the north of Crossroads is Oakworth Station, which is part of the Keighley and Worth Valley Heritage Railway. If you're looking for a traditional period-correct Yorkshire railway station, then you're not going to do much better than Oakworth, made famous by its use as a filming location in the film The Railway Children that was released in 1970. At the time, heritage railways weren't really as popular or as common as they are now, and it was the only railway where the producers could find the right-looking station and buildings, as well as a tunnel on the line, which was quite important to the plot of the film. The Heritage Railway organisation was set up in 1962 and the railway opened in 1968. And interestingly, the first train to run on the Heritage line at the time was the only train running in the country due to a national strike. Today, the railway is doing good business with several thousands of visitors every year who enjoy train rides along its 5-mile railway. Time to head to our final destination, the town of Keighley, which is merely a short drive along the A629, which once more remains the same as it did in the old days. But not everything has stayed the same since then, and I nearly got caught out by my guidebook, as I shall now explain. When visiting Keighley, my guidebook suggests we visit Keighley Museum. Fair enough, but my guidebook is referring to a museum that was situated here at Eastwood House in Victoria Park, which you'll notice is now a leisure centre. The museum was established here in 1893, but it was moved in 1950 to Cliff Castle, which is an interesting structure because whilst today it is a museum, it used to be owned by a Victorian millionaire family known as the Butterfields, who made their fortune within the textile industry. The building was constructed in the late 1820s, but when the Butterfields moved in 1848, they made various additions to the structure, such as a ballroom, a conservatory, and a tower from which to look down on all the peasants. An interesting feature of the building is this octagonal-shaped room, but this was actually added in 1950 when it became a museum and was no longer someone's house. Before we finish, I thought I'd nip up to Ilkley Moor, which sits between Keighley and Ilkley, because it's an area of typical Yorkshire countryside, and I don't think we've seen enough of that whilst we've been up here. But also, it turns out that Ilkley Moor was the scene of an alien abduction. In 1987, a retired police officer was walking across the moor when he spotted a 4-foot-high green figure with an oversized head and thin arms. It ran off, but he gave chase, only to lose it in the fog. But moments later, a craft of some description took off and made its way off into the sky. That was the first version of events. The second version of events came in 1988, where, in addition to what was already said, our police guy added that he was also abducted and taken onto the strange craft and given a tour. What an absolute nutjob, is what I'd like to say, but lucky for us all, Matey Boy had a camera, and this was 1987 when cameras were pretty good, and he managed to snap a single photograph of the alien, proving to the world once and for all that aliens exist. For f***'s sake. I think there was too much Yorkshire tea and puddings that day. And there we are then, guys. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That'd be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John. You've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting Great British Road Journey. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.